My wife claimed she was on a business trip but was with her ex. So I changed the locks and watched her scream from the driveway. I'm a 32-year-old guy and I thought I'd married my best friend. Megan and I met 6 years ago at a mutual friend's party. She was the kind of woman who filled every room with warmth and laughter. I was quiet, the kind of man who listens more than he talks, but she noticed me anyway. Somehow we just worked. I used to tell people she was the spark to my calm, the adventure to my structure. When we got married 3 years later, I honestly believed I'd won the lottery. Our marriage looked picture perfect from the outside. She worked in corporate marketing, confident, always on the move, always climbing. I'm an engineer. My world is steady, predictable, built on numbers and blueprints. I admired how driven she was. Whenever she got another promotion or an award, I felt proud, like her success was ours. Her work demanded frequent travel, and I never questioned it. I'd kiss her goodbye at the airport, help with her luggage, and tell her to text me when she landed. She always did. A photo from the hotel room, maybe a quick, long day ahead message, followed by heart emojis. At home, I tried to make things easier for her. I handled the chores, fixed things around the house, made dinner when she got back exhausted from her trips. When she thanked me, I'd brush it off. That's what love is, right? I'd say. I meant it. But sometimes I'd catch her staring at her phone and smiling. A soft, private smile that didn't quite reach her eyes when I asked what she was looking at. She'd say, just work stuff, and I'd nod, pretending I didn't feel that small. Sharp twist of doubt. Thought her business trips were proof of how hard she worked, but they were really the cracks forming beneath my feet. The business trips became a routine, almost comforting in their predictability. Megan would spend the night before packing her favorite black suitcase, humming softly while folding blouses and pencil skirts with practiced precision. She'd spritz her perfume on her collar, that same jasmine scent that used to cling to our sheets long after she left. I'd make her coffee, slip a note into her bag that said something corny like, "Come home soon, I miss you already." She'd laugh, kiss my cheek, and promise to FaceTime every night. And she did, at least at first. Her calls were short but sweet, her makeup already off, her hair tied up, the faint hum of a hotel AC in the background. She'd tell me about the clients, the presentations, how exhausting the meetings were. I'd listen, proud of how she carried herself in a world that often underestimated women. "You're killing it," I'd say, meaning it. She'd smile, and for a moment, I'd feel like the luckiest man alive. But slowly, the calls became less frequent. Sometimes she'd text instead, saying she was too tired or that meetings ran late. I tried not to take it personally. She was ambitious, and I respected that. I never wanted to be the insecure husband who couldn't handle his wife's success. One night, though, something shifted. I called her while she was supposedly in Chicago. She answered quickly, cheerful as always, but in the background I heard a man's voice. It wasn't loud, but it was close. Familiar, even. My stomach tightened. "Who's that?" I asked, half joking. She hesitated, then laughed too lightly. "Oh, just a coworker, and we're grabbing dinner before heading back to the hotel." I told myself it was fine. She deserved to unwind. But after we hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that something in her tone had changed, like she'd started living two lives, and I was only allowed to see one of them. A few weeks later, I found the first real crack in our perfect image, and it was so small I almost ignored it. Megan had just come home from another Chicago trip. She looked tired but radiant, the kind of glow that comes from something more than work. While she showered, I offered to unpack her suitcase like I always did. It was my small way of caring, of making her feel at home again. That's when I saw it. A hotel receipt tucked inside one of her folders. It wasn't from Chicago. It was from St. Louis, dated the exact same days she claimed to be away on business. My chest tightened as I read the line items: dinner for two, premium wine service, and a single king suite. My first instinct wasn't anger, it was confusion. Maybe her company changed locations last minute. Maybe it was part of her job. That's what I told myself as my pulse hammered in my ears. When she came out of the shower, steam curling around her, I tried to sound casual. "Hey, why does this say St. Louis?" I asked, holding up the paper. Her eyes flickered, just for a second. Then she laughed nervously. "Oh yeah, the meeting got moved last minute." "I told you, didn't I?" She hadn't, but I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that my wife, the woman who held my face when I was sick, who whispered I love you in her sleep, couldn't lie to me. I guess I forgot, I said quietly. She smiled, kissed me, and thanked me for being understanding. That night, I lay beside her, pretending to sleep, listening to her soft breathing. My heart wanted to trust her, but my gut whispered something else. And for the first time, I realized I might be living inside a story that wasn't mine anymore. It happened a few days later. One of those ordinary evenings that ends up burning itself into your memory. Megan had left early for work, rushing out with a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. I was cleaning up the laundry pile in our bedroom when I found a napkin stuffed inside the pocket of her jeans. It was from a restaurant, not a chain, but one of those expensive candlelit places you'd only go for special occasions. There was handwriting on it. Just 6 words. Can't stop thinking about last night. My heart dropped. The handwriting wasn't hers. It was sharp, bold, and unfamiliar. For a moment, I just stood there staring at it, every cell in my body trying to convince my brain that it meant nothing. Maybe it was a work note, maybe a coworker, maybe a joke. But deep down, I knew. When she got home, I didn't mention it. I couldn't. The words wouldn't come out. Instead, I watched her move through the kitchen, humming to herself, acting like the woman I fell in love with. My throat burned with questions I didn't dare ask. That night, she left her laptop open on the counter while she showered. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Her inbox was mostly work stuff until one subject line caught my eye. Next week, same place? My hands trembled as I clicked it open. Inside were flight details. Not for Chicago, for Denver. Different city, different dates than what she'd told me. I closed the laptop slowly, staring at our wedding photo on the wall, the one where she was laughing, her hand wrapped around mine like we were unbreakable. But something in that picture felt false now, like her smile had been a performance. That was the moment I knew. Megan's business trips weren't business at all. They were the beginning of the story she never meant for me to read. After that night, something inside me switched off. I stopped asking questions and started watching. Every I love you from her lips felt like static. I'd smile, nod, and keep my voice calm, but behind that calm was a storm gathering strength. I needed proof, not just suspicion. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that the woman I loved was lying straight to my face. I began small. I noticed her patterns. How she always took her phone into the bathroom, how she smiled at her screen before flipping it face down. I'd memorize flight numbers she mentioned and quietly check them online later, realizing some didn't even exist. I even looked up her supposed company meetings and found out none were scheduled on the days she was gone. Every discovery twisted the knife deeper, but I couldn't stop. When she announced another business trip, this time to Chicago again, my heart pounded in that sick, knowing rhythm. That night, I installed a small location tracking app on her phone. I told myself it was just to put my mind at ease, but deep down, I already knew what I was going to find. The morning she left, she kissed me goodbye like always, her perfume lingering in the doorway. 2 hours later, I opened the app. She wasn't in Chicago. She was in a small city just 2 hours away from home, a place neither of us had any reason to visit. My chest went numb. I sat there staring at that blinking blue dot, realizing how fragile love really is, how easily it can become a stranger's performance. My hands shook, but my heart was cold. It wasn't her absence that broke me. It was how effortlessly she disappeared while still pretending to love me. And I knew the next time she left, I'd be following her, not with questions, but with quiet resolve. The next time she told me she was heading out for a 3-day work trip, I played along perfectly. I smiled, kissed her goodbye, even loaded her suitcase into the trunk like I always did. She waved from the driveway, and for the first time, I didn't wave back. My heart was beating so hard it hurt, but I forced myself to stay calm. I waited 10 minutes, grabbed my keys, and followed her. The tracker on my phone pulsed steadily as I drove. Her business trip wasn't to Chicago or Denver. It was just 2 hours away, to a small boutique hotel tucked off the interstate. I parked across the street, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. My mind raced through every possible excuse she might have, but when I saw her step out of her car, laughing, those excuses died. She was glowing, like the version of her I'd fallen in love with, only she wasn't glowing for me. A man came out to meet her. He was tall, broad-shouldered and instantly familiar. It took me a second to recognize him, Tyler, her ex, the one she'd sworn she hadn't spoken to in years. My world went silent. I watched as she leaned up and kissed him, slow and comfortable, like they'd done it 1,000 times before. I didn't confront them. I couldn't. Instead, I just sat there. Watching the woman I loved walk hand in hand with the man she once promised me was just part of the past. They disappeared into the hotel together. I stayed for another hour, staring at the door they'd entered. I thought about storming in, about screaming, about begging her to tell me why. But instead, I started my car and drove home in complete silence. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, realizing that my marriage had died quietly in a parking lot while I sat, watching it happen. When Megan came home, from that business trip, she looked radiant, the kind of effortless glow that people get from falling in love, not from giving presentations. I watched her roll her suitcase through the door, humming softly like she hadn't just spent 3 days betraying our vows. She hugged me, said she'd missed me, and kissed my cheek. I forced myself to kiss her back. Inside, though, I felt hollow, like something in me had turned to glass, ready to shatter at the slightest sound. Over the next few days, I perfected the art of pretending. I cooked dinner, listened to her stories, even laughed at her jokes. Every smile was an act. Every breath felt heavy with unspoken truth. She told me she had another trip coming up soon. Just a short one, probably 2 nights. I nodded, pretending to be proud of her dedication, while in my mind, I was already planning. I moved our joint savings quietly into a personal account. I backed up every photo, every message, every piece of evidence I had. I met with a divorce lawyer under the pretense of a work lunch and explained everything. She didn't even seem surprised. "You'd be amazed how often this happens," the lawyer said gently, sliding the paperwork across the table. "Just make sure you keep your cool." So that's what I did. I went home that night and looked at Megan sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone with that faint, secretive smile. I realized she had no idea I already knew everything. And for the first time since all of this began, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt powerful. I wasn't going to scream or beg or cry. No, I was going to make her face the truth in a way she'd never forget. And I already knew exactly how. A week before her next business trip, the air in our house felt heavier. Every glance, every word was loaded with things neither of us said out loud. She must have felt it too, because one evening while I was washing dishes, she suddenly snapped, "You've been different lately," she said sharply. "Cold, distant. What's going on with you?" I turned off the faucet and faced her. Her tone wasn't concern. It was accusation, like I was the one betraying her. "Maybe I'm just tired," I said flatly. Her eyes narrowed. "Tired of what? This marriage? Me?" She threw her arms up, her voice rising. "Do you have any idea how hard I work for us?" The words cut deeper than she realized. I stared at her, at this woman twisting the truth until she was the victim. The same woman who smiled in another man's arms days earlier. "Yeah," I whispered. "I think I do." She went silent for a moment, eyes darting, searching my face for something. Then suddenly she broke into tears, perfectly timed, effortless tears. "I just feel like you don't love me anymore," she sobbed. For a second, I almost believed her. That's the thing about emotional manipulation. You want to believe the performance because it feels safer than facing the truth. I almost reached out to comfort her, to let her lies win again. But then her phone buzzed. She flinched. The screen lit up. And in that brief moment, I saw the name, Tyler. Her breath hitched, but it was too late. The world around me seemed to fade. The kitchen light, the hum of the refrigerator, everything. I just stared at her, at the phone she was now clutching like a lifeline. "You should probably answer," I said quietly. Wouldn't want to keep him waiting. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not the part that loved her, but the part that still hoped she'd ever deserve my love. After that night, the house became a theater of silence. Megan walked around pretending everything was fine, but something in her eyes said she knew I'd seen the name on her phone. Still, she didn't admit anything. That was the cruelest part. She didn't even care enough to lie properly anymore. But I was done needing her words. I had something stronger now, clarity, so when she mentioned another business trip, I agreed too easily. "You deserve a break," I said, kissing her forehead. She smiled, relieved. I spent that week preparing, closing our joint accounts, setting up new locks, packing her things into neat boxes she'd never expected to see outside this house. I even cleaned the living room, like I was purging her from the walls themselves. Every item I touched felt like reclaiming a piece of myself she'd taken. The morning she left, she kissed me with that same fake warmth, saying, "Don't wait up for me." I smiled and told her I wouldn't. The second she drove off, I opened the tracker on my phone again. Just like before, the blue dot stopped at the same boutique hotel. This time I didn't follow. I didn't need to, instead I called a locksmith. Within 2 hours, every key she owned was useless. Her boxes sat by the door, divorce papers folded neatly on top with a short note. "You don't live here anymore. You chose him." Then I waited. That night, the cameras I'd installed caught the moment she returned, her headlights cutting through the dark, her smile fading when her key wouldn't turn. I stood by the window upstairs, watching quietly as her confusion turned to panic. For once, I didn't feel broken or small. I just felt finished. The kind of finish that comes when you finally stop bleeding and start healing through revenge, and soon, she'd know exactly how that felt. It was late when her car finally pulled into the driveway. I was upstairs, lights off, watching through the blinds as her headlights sliced across the walls. She got out, dragging her suitcase, her phone pressed to her ear, probably calling her coworker to say she made it home safely. I could almost laugh at the irony. She walked up to the door, slid her key in, and froze when it didn't turn. She tried again. Harder. Then again, rattling it, confused. I waited until she started knocking. "Babe," she called out, her voice uncertain. "The lock's jammed. Can you open up?" I didn't move. I wanted her to feel that confusion, to wonder for once what she'd done wrong. She knocked again, louder this time, her tone sharp now. "Open the door, this isn't funny." Her voice cracked on the last word, and that's when I answered her call. She picked up instantly. "What the hell's going on?" I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I said, calm as ever, "You should have stayed loyal instead of staying with him." There was a pause, a stunned, breathless pause. "What?" she whispered. "I know, Megan. About Tyler, about every business trip. I've seen everything." Her breathing grew shaky. "You don't understand. It's not—" "Save it," I cut in. "Your things are by the door. The house isn't yours anymore." She started pounding on the door, screaming my name, sobbing so hard I could hear it through the phone. I stood there listening. It should have hurt, but it didn't. Not anymore. "Please, just let me in. We can talk, please." I hung up. Down below, she kept screaming until her voice broke. Then finally, she went quiet. For the first time in months, the house felt still again, like it belonged to me. I didn't just change the locks. I closed the chapter she'd burned. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains, brighter than it had felt in months. Downstairs, the boxes I'd packed for her still sat by the door, untouched. The security footage showed her pacing outside half the night, calling, crying, then finally leaving around dawn. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. By noon, she was back, makeup smeared, eyes red, her voice trembling as she banged on the door. "Please, just talk to me," she begged through the intercom camera. "It wasn't what you think. Tyler means nothing." I almost laughed. That same mouth had whispered, "I love you" to both of us, probably within hours. I pressed the intercom button. "You had your chance to talk. Now you can sign the papers." Her face twisted, a mix of guilt and rage. "You can't just throw me out like this." "You're being cruel." Cruel. The word hit me harder than I expected. I'd spent years giving her everything, loyalty, patience, love, while she gave her body and time to someone else. I wasn't cruel. I was done. "You did this, Megan," I said quietly. "You don't get to call it cruel just because you lost control." Her tears stopped instantly. Her expression hardened. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You think people won't hear your side?" "I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are," I smiled faintly. "Then make sure you tell them about Tyler, too." I kept the receipts. She froze. Really froze. Realizing I meant it. For a moment, her confidence cracked completely, replaced by fear. Then she turned, grabbed her phone, and stormed off down the driveway. I stood there watching her leave for the last time. No shouting, no closure, no final embrace. Just the hollow sound of tires on gravel. Watching her drive away didn't hurt. It healed. Because sometimes peace isn't loud. It's just the sound of a door staying closed. The divorce finalized 3 months later. It was quiet, clinical, just signatures on paper and a final meeting where we couldn't even look at each other. When it was over, I walked out of that courthouse lighter than I'd felt in years. No wedding ring. No guilt, no pretending. Just silence, the kind that doesn't hurt anymore. I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, a view of the street, and walls that didn't echo with her laughter or lies. The first night there, I sat on the balcony with a beer, staring at the city lights. It felt strange being alone again. Strange, but right. I wasn't rebuilding the man she broke. I was becoming someone who finally understood his worth. Friends told me I was cold for changing the locks. My mother even said, "You should have tried to forgive her." But none of them saw the way she smiled when she lied, or how easily she could look me in the eye and say she loved me while planning her next trip to someone else's bed. Forgiveness isn't peace when it means abandoning yourself. Megan tried reaching out once, a short email saying she missed me and that she'd made a mistake. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it without replying. There was nothing left to say. Some people only realize your value after they've already thrown it away. Now, when I drive past that old house, I don't feel anger anymore, just distance. That chapter ended the moment she lost her key. I used to think love was about trust, about giving someone everything and hoping they handle it with care. But I've learned something better. Love is also knowing when to lock the door and walk away for good. And that day, when she screamed from the driveway, I wasn't losing a wife. I was finally reclaiming myself.